They say women are a mystery. But what few have the courage to say is that this mystery, in fact, is not an enigma. It is chaos. An enchanting chaos disguised as modern rationality. The illusion begins when the man, thirsting for connection, dives headfirst into trying to decipher this labyrinth. He reads books, listens to advice, observes behaviors, and tries to piece together a puzzle with pieces that never fit. He wants to understand what she wants. But what he hasn't yet realized is that not even she knows it. This is the first fracture in the foundation of any male attempt to please. Female desire is not a logical equation. It is volatile, shaped by unconscious impulses, unresolved traumas, fluctuating hormones, and the eternal tension between what she thinks she wants and what truly makes her tremble inside. And that is precisely why trying to please is the most direct path to contempt. A man who seeks to understand what a woman wants is unconsciously placing himself beneath her. He enters a game where she dictates the rules, changes the game, and in the end, still blames him for the defeat. The error isn't in wanting to understand. The error is in believing that this understanding will make him more desirable. It won't. Because desire isn't born from comprehension. Desire is born from tension, from imbalance, from the unknown. And this is where the most fascinating contradiction of the female mind comes in. She is attracted to what she can't control. Security comforts her, but it's uncertainty that excites her. She says she wants stability, but yearns for the unpredictable. She complains about the man who treats her coldly, but surrenders to the first indifferent glance that carries with it the weight of a man who has more to do than please her. She says she wants a good listener, but falls in love with someone who speaks little and carries silence with presence. And most ironically of all, she demands sincerity, but falls in love with mystery. This dissonance isn't a flaw, it's a characteristic. Nietzsche once said that a woman is not a truth to be discovered, but a force to be reckoned with. And the man who understands this stops trying to please and begins to position himself, not as a tyrant, but as a pillar. A presence that doesn't bend to the winds of a woman's mood, but stands firm, precisely because it is imperturbable. See, we're not talking about ignoring women. We're talking about stepping out of the role of emotional servant. When a man asks himself, what do women want? He's already lost. Because that question is a surrender. It's abdicating his center. It's accepting that value lies outside of him, and that he must earn that value with good actions, well-timed phrases, and approved behavior. It's the death of male leadership. And the worst part is that this blind search for understanding not only makes him despicable in women's eyes, but also disconnects him from himself. He begins to shape his personality not by what he believes, but by what he imagines will please. He doesn't say what he thinks, he says what she expects. He doesn't act firmly, he acts cautiously. He doesn't lead the interaction, he constantly asks if everything is okay. This kills desire, because desire needs a subtle antagonism. It needs contrast. It needs a man who is willing to lose, rather than become a servant to gain. That's why we see every day beautiful women with men who appear to the outside world completely unattractive. Chubby, ugly, poorly dressed, lacking in status. And what do they have? Simple. They have center. They have poise. They disdain the need for approval. They don't kneel. They don't seek. They are. And by being, they awaken something primal in her. A calling that comes from eras where the hesitant male died and the one who led was followed. Have you ever noticed how women reject other women's relationship advice? They listen, they nod, but in practice they do exactly the opposite. This isn't stupidity, it's instinct. Because feminine advice teaches how to be secure, not how to be attracted. And desire lives outside of security. It is born in the vulnerability of surrender to someone who doesn't bend. And here's the key point. The man who doesn't try to understand a woman is the man she wants to understand. This reversal is powerful. When you stop asking her what she wants, she starts asking what you want. When you stop chasing her, she starts chasing to be noticed. When you live centered on your purpose, she starts trying to fit into your story. And no matter how much modern discourse teaches her not to do this, no matter how much feminism tries to convince her that following a man is weakness, her desire is stronger than ideology. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Every woman wants to be led, but not by just anyone. She wants to be led by someone who knows where they're going. Someone who won't change direction because she cried, complained, or threatened. Someone who, even in the face of a woman's emotional storm, remains steadfast in his path. This man is rare, and that's precisely why he's desired. There's nothing more magnetic to a woman than a man she can't break. Not because he's insensitive, but because he's whole. Because he doesn't compromise principles to keep company. Because he's capable of losing a date, but not his dignity. Because he values his own worldview more than the momentary pleasure of pleasing someone who, deep down, wants to be challenged, not served. The modern woman is lost. She's been taught that freedom means doing everything alone, but she cries silently because she doesn't have someone to make her feel protected. She repeats that she doesn't need a man, but dreams of one who looks at her with authority and makes her feel small in a good way. The smallness that only feels small before something bigger, stronger, more solid. She says she wants equality, but she doesn't admire the equal. She admires the superior, the stronger, the one who leads, the one who challenges. And this generates guilt, an internal conflict where what she feels wars with what she's been taught. That's why she tests, she provokes, she challenges. She needs to know if you're capable of facing her without fear. If you resist emotional manipulation. If you remain yourself even when she tries to mold you. Because only then can she trust. Only then can she surrender. And ironically, only then can she love. This is the great tragedy of men who try to please. They think they'll win love by being docile, present, and excessively attentive. But feminine love isn't born of peace. It's born of the tension that precedes surrender. Of admiration. From the certainty that if she falters, she could lose you. And therefore, she values every inch she earns of your time, your attention, your affection. The philosopher Ortega y Gasset wrote, "In love, a woman surrenders when she feels fascination. And fascination, as we've said, is born of mystery, of the unknown, of the force that doesn't beg, but imposes. Therefore, the more you try to understand what she wants, the less she wants you. And the more you become the man who knows what he wants, the more irresistible you become. You don't need to decipher her. You just need to position yourself, firmly, clearly, and with a life direction that doesn't depend on female validation. Because ultimately, the man who attracts isn't the one who tries to please, it's the one who challenges. And the one who challenges inevitably leads. And by leading, he does what most never dare. He makes the woman follow him without understanding exactly why. He just feels. And that, my friend, is what separates the ordinary from the unforgettable. What if I told you that the man most desired by women is the very one they avoid admitting they want? What if this man, more often than not, was labeled arrogant, cold, unapproachable, and yet he effortlessly made their hearts race? Because that's what he is, a paradox. He doesn't need to seduce, because he is the very definition of seduction. And everything he represents, she wants, but won't admit it. After a lifetime of hearing that the right thing to do is be kind, affectionate, available, and always willing, the average man finds himself lost when he realizes that the men who truly arouse desire in them are the men who act in almost the opposite way. Not because they're jerks, but because they're whole. Because they have something the average man has lost. Direction. This is the most magnetic trait a man can have. Direction. The man who knows what he wants, who walks with determination, who doesn't bow to the emotional whims of others, this man is a threat to the female emotional system. And that's why she desires him. Because he doesn't play her game. He plays his own. He doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't need validation. He moves, and she follows. Sometimes with her eyes, sometimes with her entire body. This man is like a force of nature. Uncontrollable, yet impossible to ignore. And the most interesting thing is that he doesn't define himself by women. In fact, women are a consequence of the life he builds. He doesn't wake up thinking about how to please them. He wakes up thinking about how to grow, dominate, build, win. He's too busy being who he was born to be. And that's exactly why she wants him. But this attraction isn't just biological, it's ancestral. Since the beginning of time, women have connected with those who convey security through action, not words. The man who doesn't hesitate, the man who resolves, the man who, even in the face of chaos, is the point of balance, the silent leader. This pattern remains, even if they try to erase it under the veneer of modernity. And when she meets this kind of man, her body reacts before her mind can even rationalize. She says she wants someone who listens to her. And she does. But she doesn't want him to hear everything. She wants him to stop her when she's lost, correct her when she's wrong, challenge her when she's manipulating. Because, deep down, she wants to be guided. Not because she's weak, but because she's feminine. And the essence of femininity is to flow, not lead. But she will never admit it. Because admitting it would be acknowledging the fragility that feminism has taught her to hide. Being guided feels like submission. And submission in the modern imagination is weakness. But her body doesn't lie. It responds with excitement when she finds a man who doesn't trade on insecurity, who has an internal compass so powerful that any explanation is unnecessary. He simply is. And because of that, she simply desires. This is the man she desires, but won't acknowledge. Because if she did, she'd have to give up the illusion of control. She'd have to admit that even with freedom, she still wants someone to lead her. And that, for the modern woman, is almost heresy. But it's true. It's visceral. It's uncontrollable. When she finds this man, the game is over. Because instinct trumps narrative. And he doesn't have to be handsome, or rich, or famous. He just needs to be someone who knows exactly what he's doing. Who, when he looks into her eyes, conveys clarity. Who, when he touches her, does so with intention. Who, when he speaks, carries weight. This man is rare. And that's why he never needs to chase. He attracts, like a magnet, like a gravitational field that pulls effortlessly. Don Draper, James Bond, Thomas Shelby, Tyler Durden, characters who don't ask permission to exist. They impose their presence through silence, through firmness, through unshakable conviction. They all carry traits of the masculine archetype that transcends aesthetics and invades the feminine unconscious. Quiet power, controlled danger, non-negotiable direction. And no matter how much she denies it, it's for this kind of man that she silently prays. And here's the thing. These men weren't born this way. They were forged through pain, rejection, loneliness, and internal struggle. They built something greater than the desire to be desired. They built purpose. And it's this purpose that lights their gaze. It's what keeps them from hesitating to say no. It's what makes them selective. Because they know they have value. They know what they offer. They know what they want. And curiously, it's at this moment that women buckle. When they realize they're not necessary, they're optional. When they realize they have no power over him, but desire to be chosen by him. And this makes them dance around, try, pursue, seduce. Because he's unavailable. He's on a mission. And the woman wants to be part of the mission, not be the mission. This type of man doesn't respond to neediness. He doesn't give in to emotional manipulation. He doesn't sabotage himself for the sake of a beautiful body or a seductive look. He has no time for games. He has time for results. He's busy shaping his reality, and this demands so much focus that any unplanned deviation is automatically eliminated. This may seem cold, but it's simply clarity. And when a woman encounters this kind of clarity, something inside her surrenders. Because she knows she can't lead. She knows she can't change. And that's exactly what excites her. Because a woman doesn't want to transform a man. She wants to be transformed by him. She wants him to take her to inner places she's never been, to challenge her, to protect her from herself. This man has presence. And presence isn't about speaking loudly or showing off. Presence is being so comfortable with silence that he becomes eloquent. It's about looking someone in the eye without looking away. It's about walking into any room as if the world were his, not out of arrogance, but out of conviction. And that, my friend, is an aphrodisiac no woman can resist. A woman tests constantly. With words, with actions, with emotional crises. She needs to know if he's real, if he holds out, if he remains unshakable, even when she loses her balance. Because if he falls, she loses respect. And when respect disappears, desire dies with it. But if he stands firm, if he faces her without giving in, if he leads her chaos with direction, then she surrenders. Not out of fear, but out of admiration. And this is exactly where the magic happens. When she sees he doesn't need her, yet chooses her. When she understands he can have anyone, yet still wants to share the journey with her. This isn't just attraction, it's hypnosis. Because the scarcity of this kind of man in the world makes him a relic, a prize, a hidden treasure. Therefore, it's not about being what she says she wants. It's about being what she feels she needs, even without understanding it. And this requires an internal construction that most men never allow themselves to do. Because it takes courage. Courage to say no. Courage to walk alone. Courage to be rejected and still keep going. Courage to become someone who doesn't need approval to feel valuable. The man she desires but won't admit isn't a manipulator. He's a living archetype, a symbol of the wholesome masculine. He's not at the top because he seeks applause, but because he refuses to settle for less than he can be. And this refusal to be average makes him magnetic, unstoppable, desirable. Because ultimately, every woman wants to be led by someone greater than herself. And there's nothing greater than a man who knows himself. She may never admit it, she may even fight it, but when she finds him, she can't resist. Because he doesn't try. He simply is. And being, when it's real, will always be more powerful than any desperate effort to please. She's not looking at what you say, she's feeling what you emanate. Because a man's value isn't what he promises, it's what he represents. That's why, at the end of all the analysis, mind games, and failed strategies, there remains one brutal truth. The world doesn't respond to what you want, but to what you become. And what she truly wants isn't you. It's what you can make her feel, what you represent in her mind and body. And that can't be bought, faked, or forced. It can be built. Masculine value isn't given, it's built, brick by brick, throughout a journey of overcoming self-knowledge and mastery. And that's why so many fail, because they want to reap without sowing. They want recognition without sacrifice. They want power without transformation. The mistake begins when men still believe women are a goal, when in fact, they are the mirror, the reflection of their level of evolution. The more you grow, the more selective and selective they become. Not because you've changed your game, but because you've become the game. Seduction stops being an effort and becomes a side effect, a byproduct of your greatness. This is where the concept of masculine social value, MSV, comes in. It's not about having muscles, money, or status per se. It's about having power. Power over yourself. Power over the decisions you make. Power over your journey. It's composed of silent pillars: competence, clarity, self-control, presence, direction. And all these elements together make your existence scream too loud to be ignored. MSV isn't taught, it's embodied. It's not spoken, it's demonstrated. It's in the details, in the way you walk, in your tone of voice, in the way you handle failure, in the way you look at the world. And women, no matter how much they can't explain it, feel it instantly. They recognize when they're faced with a man who doesn't need to prove anything. And this lack of need is the greatest aphrodisiac there is, because the man who has built his value doesn't compete. He doesn't vie for attention. He doesn't try to appear interesting. He is interesting because he lives, because he experiments, because he expands. He has become so rare that his mere presence is an experience. And that's what she wants to feel. To be permeated by a masculine presence that doesn't need to touch her to dominate her. But reaching this level requires you to die to the old, to the needy, to what begs, to what molds itself, to what adapts at all costs to please. Value is born from discomfort, from absence, from productive silence, from the pain you haven't numbed but used as fuel. The man who has value is the one who has used his scars as armor, not as an excuse. And that's why he's desired, because he is whole. He doesn't want half a woman, because he's not half a man. He demands everything and offers everything, but without ever begging, because he knows that if she doesn't want it, others will come. And if none come, he will still be complete, because your life is full, because your path is clear, because your value doesn't depend on being recognized, but on being lived. This is the new order of conscious masculinity. One that doesn't react, but creates, that doesn't beg for affection, but radiates respect, that isn't afraid of losing because it's already found itself, and therefore it's never trapped, never dominated, never becomes an emotional hostage. A woman realizing this enters a state of silent fascination, because she finally finds a man who can offer what no one else can: stability without boredom, leadership without oppression, mystery without games, and above all, value without necessity. He doesn't want to be loved to feel like someone. He already is someone, and therefore he is loved. This kind of man doesn't ask if she's interested. He observes. He doesn't send flowers, he provokes emotions. He doesn't explain himself, he imposes himself. And she, upon realizing this, feels seen in a way no flattery could. Because he doesn't put her on a pedestal, he invites her to rise, to be worthy of the world he's built. And this world isn't just made of external conquests, it's internal. It's forged in the decisions he makes when no one is looking. It's forged in discipline, in focus, in purpose, in self-control, in the silence between one choice and another. In the no he says to momentary pleasures. In the yes he gives to what truly matters. It's forged in the war he wages with his own demons, and he wins. That's why, when you transform into this man, it's not just the feminine world that changes. The entire world changes. Because you stop asking permission to exist, you take a stand, you create, you lead, and inevitably, you attract. That's the beauty of the male game. You're born worthless, but you can build all the value you want. It all depends on your willingness to die to what's easy and be reborn in discipline, consistency, and greatness. You don't have to be perfect, but you do need to be non-negotiable about your own evolution. Because ultimately, she doesn't want a perfect man. She wants a man in constant expansion. And when she feels that, no matter what anyone says, she'll want to belong. She'll want to connect. She'll want to be close. Because a man's value is the only map a woman willingly follows, even without knowing where she's going. And when you understand that, you realize the world doesn't revolve around what she wants. It revolves around what you build. You no longer need to chase anyone. You need to chase yourself. Because when a man discovers his own worth, the game changes forever. He stops being the desperate hunter and becomes the territory everyone wants to conquer. Throughout this video, you understood what few men will have the courage to accept. That female desire doesn't respond to logic, promises, or appearances. It responds to the vibration of power that only a man on a mission can emit. The kind of man she senses before she even looks. Who doesn't need to explain himself because his posture says it all. The man who is so whole, so rare, so firm, that he becomes inevitable. And if this made you reflect, it's because you're ready. Ready to break out of the vicious cycle of neediness and enter the strategic universe of real attraction. Not the kind of attraction that struggles to exist, but the kind that emerges as an inevitable consequence of your value. And that's exactly why I created the Forbidden Manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds. The definitive audiobook for men who don't want to waste any more time. If you liked what you learned here, what's in it will blow your mind. Because I don't just talk about what women want. I teach you how to become the man they can't ignore. This audiobook is a brutal shortcut, a direct code, a sequence of mental, behavioral, and emotional triggers that activate female desire in an instinctive, almost uncontrollable way, and all in just 60 seconds. It's not manipulation, it's biology applied intelligently. It's the art of seduction based on science, behavior, psychology, and field expertise. Inside you'll discover how to spark desire even without being handsome or rich. What are the invisible behaviors that make any woman see you as an alpha male? How to hack her instincts without saying a word. And most importantly, how to take control of the interaction from the first glance. This material is not for amateurs. It's not for those who want to continue being nice guys. It's for men who are ready to turn things around and embrace their masculinity with strategy, direction, and intensity. And if you've made it this far, it's because you're ready. So my question is, will you continue living like just another man? Or will you become the kind of man who asks for nothing but receives everything? If the answer is clear, click the button now and take the Forbidden Manual with you. Because time doesn't stop, and every day you continue the same way is another day the world ignores your true potential. You were born for more. All that's left is for you to become that. Click, listen, transform yourself.